So we're working in Bubble and we want an SEO friendly blog or article type page like this, where you can have a subfolder off the main site and you can click into an article and have a slug that is SEO friendly and have an article here. Now, something like Webflow has this built in. And it just assumes this is what you're trying to do. Bubble does not make any of these assumptions, so you kind of have to do a little extra work. And so one way to do it is to have these resources and have multiple pages. But then if you have these multiple pages, you end up with something like this. And this kind of defeats the purpose. So this is no good. So we want something like this. We're going to go into here where we're building this. We're actually building this on the subdomain app2, but we will eventually move this to replace the main website, so it'll be at the root. So this is what we have, and this is what we're trying to emulate. We have all these, this main resources page. This version test is basically just Bubble's kind of preview. So it'll eventually be like this, but if you're in Sandbox, so you don't muck everything up, you do this. So that's why it's under version test, but you can just pretend like that version test is not there. So I click here, you can see that I have resources / where did it go? There we go. Resources / LLC versus S Corp. Okay, and if I go back, we have that. Go forward, we have that. All right, so this is what we are trying to accomplish. So in Bubble, the way to do this is to do it all on the same page. And so we basically have the content area here, which is down here. We have this. This is just the content. Then up here is where we actually put the thumbnail, the title, the summary, or the abstract. And so we're basically just going to say, okay, when we go to / resources, we just want to see this. And then when someone clicks on one of these posts, we want to hide this, and then we want to show the content and pull the content from the database for the appropriate post, and then just change the URL. And so the way that we're going to do this is we are going to use a plugin. There are multiple plugins that do this. So whichever one works best for you, but we're using this URL router for navigation from, I think, Zero Code. So this is the one that we're using for specific reasons. So we go back to resources, and we want to do this. We're going to start with, obviously, we want the resources. We need to drop the URL router on the page. So that's right here. Right here. So you're going to go over here. You're going to find the router, and you're going to drag it on the page, and you're just going to make it really small, and you're going to put it out of the way so it really doesn't matter, because all it's going to do is run some code live for you. You're going to add this isn't live development version on here, or isn't live version. That way it's dynamic, so when you're in development, you go live, it pulls from the right database. Okay, so then the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to drop something on here to understand how this is pulling information. And we're going to add this dynamic data, and it's going to be the router. And we're going to say we want the first path, just so we can understand what is happening. All right, so we're going to go here, and we're just going to be in resources. and you're going to notice there's going to be no text here. But as soon as I click in here, or actually I can literally just put in new page, this becomes the first path. And there you go. So if I change this and I say we actually want the second path, and then I update this, this is going to be blank because this is the first path, not the second path. And so the way this looks is like this: first path, second path. So as you can see there. All right. So that is going to be how we manipulate the page and the URL to do what we want. So we don't need this anymore. This was just for that example. So now what we need to do is we need to show this when we go to resources, and we need to hide this. So this is going to be not visible. Okay, so for this content area, we're going to give this conditional. Where are we? This group. We're going to give this conditional that says if the router A's first path, and you remember the first path is essentially going to be what the slug is not empty. So that means there's something there. So there is something in the slug. So it's /resources /LLC dash versus dash S corp. Then it will become visible. And then we're just going to do the opposite with this group. So if the router's first path is empty, which means it's just /resources, then this is going to be visible. So what data are we going to show in here? So we've got the data in the database under website resources. So we're basically anything that is for the website, that's a public-facing website and not the internal app. We're calling it website resources. That's the data type name. It's going to be where all the blog stuff is stored, all the content. And so as you can see here, we've got all this information, right? And so we're going to find the first item and we're going to get the content from the first item. All right. So type of content is website resources. We're going to search for website resources. The slug is going to equal the router A's first path. So that means if we go to /LLC versus S corp, or I'm not really sure what the actual real name is, that is the first path. So the slug in the website resources must equal router A's first path. Okay, so router A's first path, we're going to go back to data. We're going to find the LLC versus, so we see the slug here, LLC versus S corp. There we go. That's how these two match up. So we're going to search for, we're basically going to take the first path. We're going to take the first path and we're going to say the slug equals whatever the first path is, and that is going to be, and you're going to just take the first item because it's going to be the only item that it finds. And that is going to be the content that we put in here. Then we are going to, so within this content group, we have this Notion-like rich text editor plugin. So this is basically going to be our composer. This is going to be a Notion-like plugin, and we just dropped that in here. And then we're going to scroll down to where it says auto bind, because we want it essentially to be people who have people who are administrators of the website, we want them to be able to edit these blogs, but we don't want public, people to be doing that. So let's find the auto bind. Let me pause this and find the auto bind. It's right at the top here. So enable auto binding, fields to modify, content, the initial content that we are grabbing. So this is the actual field that we're editing. The initial content that is going to be shown is actually going to be the content from the parent group's website resources, and it's going to be the content field. It's not going to be read only because we want to edit it. And so when we go here, we refresh, I can now click on LLC versus S Corp. So there's nothing here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this our old custom site. I'm going to paste this in. And I'm essentially just going to copy and paste this old data to be the new blog post. This does take a little bit of time, but what it does provide you is the freedom to own this yourself within Bubble. It allows you to provide much more access to people on your terms. Yes, you do have to do a little building over what Webflow might be. Webflow, you just have to kind of design it. This is like a little extra functionality you have to build in. It's a little bit higher of a learning curve, but it all becomes yours. And so I can run, instead of having a marketing site at www.betterlegal.com and then the internal site at app.betterlegal.com, I can actually have all of it under one roof on betterlegal.com. And then anything that is internal, like some internal data that we might have in our documentation and stuff, could actually be very useful to the public website and also be very SEO friendly. So why do I want to have the data in two separate places, one internal where it is not being exposed to Google and one external where it is being exposed to Google? I want that information to be able to be free flowing back and forth. And so that's why I think that Bubble is a better option for having a blog and your internal app hosted under the same domain.